Theresa Caputo, a medium from Long Island, and her ex-husband Larry Caputo are going through a challenging period in their lives. A company failure has nearly cost them everything. A once prosperous couple has lost everything and is now homeless. However, they have made the decision to go back and start over rather than give up. They both intend to use a bank loan to grow their businesses. They think a fresh start can come from the journey that came to an end. It will be hard for them to succeed again, though, according to many around them. Taking out additional loans might put them in even greater danger. They will also have to sell their home and leave the nation if they fail once more. Now that everyone is looking, will Theresa and Larry actually be able to change their luck, or will their battle for survival bring them to an even more trying end? Known for her towering blonde hair, sparkling personality, and uncanny ability to connect with the spirit world, Theresa Caputo was once the lively star of Long Island medium. However, even the most resilient souls are put to the test in a peculiar way by life. She used to live in luxury with her ex-husband, Larry Caputo. They invested in companies that seemed to promise limitless wealth, drove fancy cars, and traveled the world. However, one by one, their endeavors failed. Their wealth was depleted by bad choices, market meltdowns, and partner betrayals. A life of plenty turned into a daily struggle for survival. They nearly lost it all by the summer of 2025. Their businesses closed, their reputations were tarnished, and their savings were gone. Theresa was standing on the brink of despair for the first time. After spending her entire life using messages from spirit to give others hope, the woman now wondered if she had any hope left. She and Larry sat in a tiny rented apartment one evening. The room was chilly, the walls were blank, and the only source of light was a flickering lamp. The silence was broken by Larry. "We can't just sit here and do nothing, Theresa. Maybe this is our chance to start over. Even though we've lost a lot. We could return to business, but more strategically, I've been considering. Carefully expand in a different way. We are able to obtain a bank loan." Theresa gazed at him indecisively. "Larry, a loan? After all, our debt is already overwhelming us. It's over if we fail once more. What little we have left will be lost. Even this location." Larry leaned forward, his eyes blazing with resolve. "But what will happen if we don't try? Do we concede the loss? Continue to live this way? We're warriors, Theresa. We can rebuild what we have already built." Theresa couldn't shut her thoughts, so she lay awake that night. She thought of all the people who had trusted her, the admirers who had faith in her, and the patients who had been healed by her words. Spirit always showed new beginnings, she had always assured them, and endings were not final. Could she, however, heed her own counsel? Theresa walked to the closest church the following morning. Whispering into the silent room, she sat by herself in the pews. "Spirit, this is the moment I need guidance more than ever. Lead the way for me. Is this my last chance, or should I take this risk once more?" She experienced a profound sense of calm, and she sensed the answer deep within. The journey isn't over. Encouraged, she went back home and said, "Let's do it," to Larry. "Let's submit the loan application. We don't, however, pursue lofty goals mindlessly this time. We remain grounded and focused. We fight cleverly." They entered the bank together a few days later. Knowing that the application could either save or ruin them, their hands were shaking as they signed it. The banker gave them a close, almost suspicious look. "Are you certain you're prepared to take on this duty once more? You'll have to sell your home if you don't succeed. You might even need to leave the nation." Theresa gave a nod. "We comprehend. However, we support second chances." Within their community, word spread swiftly. Fans, neighbors, and friends all had conflicting reactions. Some applauded their bravery and encouraged them. "They're done," others murmured behind their backs. "They won't succeed again. They will only get into more problems as a result." Larry and Theresa, however, pushed on. Theresa's gift of mediumship was combined with holistic services like counseling, meditation classes, and natural therapies when they opened a small wellness and spiritual healing center. Larry oversaw the operations and was committed to maintaining order. Initially, the company had trouble. On certain days, very few customers entered the establishment. The burden of debt weighed heavily on their shoulders as bills mounted. Theresa frequently sobbed at night out of fear that the rumors of failure would soon come to pass. Then, though, things started to shift. Individuals who came to Theresa for a straightforward session began posting about their experiences on the internet. The center is more than a business. It's a place of healing. She helped me connect with my mom, who passed away. I haven't felt peace in years. The crowd grew slowly. Clients came from distant towns to meet Theresa as the community started to support them. The center turned into a haven for the lost, the grieving, and the broken. Theresa and Larry also started healing themselves as they helped others. Their loan officer came to the center a few months later. He surveyed the crowded rooms, the tears and laughter, the vitality of life pulsing through the place. "I had my doubts, but you proved me wrong," he said, grinning. "Here, you've created something genuine." For the first time in years, Theresa and Larry both felt a glimmer of hope turn into a flame as they looked at each other. Their path was not a simple or assured one. There was still a chance of failure. However, they had found resilience, teamwork, and faith in fresh starts again, which were far more valuable than money. Thus, Theresa and Larry strode forward hand in hand, prepared to demonstrate that hope can illuminate the path even in the most dire circumstances, while the rest of the world continued to watch and whisper. But Long Island was experiencing a cool autumn afternoon. The crisp breeze carried the subtle scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, and the leaves had just begun to turn crimson and gold. The anticipation in the community center was palpable. Theresa Caputo, the Long Island medium, had organized a group reading event, and people had come. There was a nervous chatter among the audience, a mixture of skepticism and silent hope. A young mother named Emily sat among the couples and families, holding her 4-year-old son, Noah, in her lap. Emily's mother passed away from cancer not long ago. Raising her son by herself, coping with grief, and attempting to make sense of unresolved questions had been a challenging year. Prior to going, she had kept her personal information private. Curious but wary, she just purchased the ticket and arrived. Theresa had a captivating presence as soon as she entered the room. She immediately brightened the scene with her trademark big hair, high heels, and dazzling personality. She gave a hearty welcome to everyone before closing her eyes and allowing the quiet to descend. "All right," she said abruptly, gesturing to the audience's left. "I have a mother figure coming through. She is really strong, and it seems to me that she died of something related to her chest, possibly cancer or the lungs. Who among us lost a mother figure to such a thing?" There were several hands raised, but Theresa's eyes were fixed on Emily. "It's you, my love. Right behind you is her. She wants me to let you know that she's proud of the way you're handling things." Emily's eyes grew wide and began to well up with tears. She gave a nod. "That's my mother. Lung cancer claimed her life last year." Theresa gave a soft smile. "She claims to have seen a young boy with you. I take it that's your son? She keeps displaying a birthmark to me. Why would she give me the impression that this child's left shoulder is marked?" Emily took a sharp breath. Nearly no one outside the family was aware of her son Noah's noticeable oval-shaped birthmark on his shoulder blade. She had never spoken about it in public or on the internet. Everyone in the audience appeared to lean forward, as if they could sense that something extraordinary was taking place. Emily's voice wavered. "He does. On his shoulder is one. No one is aware of that." Theresa's gaze grew softer. "Well, your mother is aware. She claims to have been present when he was born. Even though she was already in spirit, she is demonstrating to me that she kissed that precise spot when he entered this world." Emily sobbed as she held Noah close to her. The young boy appeared perplexed, but reassured by his mother's hug. Theresa, however, stopped and cocked her head as if paying close attention. Theresa squinted and whispered, seemingly repeating what she was hearing. "She's spelling something for me. Oh, Noah? Are you familiar with the name Noah?" Emily was stunned. "That's the name of my son." She let out a cry. Everyone in the audience gasped. Others shook their heads in shock, while others covered their mouths. The room's energy completely changed. What had begun as curiosity now felt like a sacred space where an inexplicable event was taking place. Leaning forward, Theresa spoke softly. Your mother wishes you to know that she helped you decide on that name. She claims that while you were still debating, she whispered it in your ear. You believed it to be a dream, but it was actually her. She claims that Noah's birthmark is a reminder that she is always connected to him because he carries a piece of her soul. Emily broke down in tears, experiencing a release she hadn't given herself since her mother's death. I've always questioned why I picked his name. It seemed random to me. However, it simply felt right. Theresa nodded and grinned. That wasn't random, honey. That isn't how spirit operates. According to your mother, she never truly abandoned you. She has supported you through every difficult night, every tear, and every moment when you felt like you couldn't go on. As much as you are raising Noah, she says, he saved you. Some of the audience members were wiping tears from their eyes as they sat in silence. The rawness of the moment moved even the skeptics who had come to test Theresa. Theresa put her hand on her chest after that. Before she withdraws, she wants me to say one final thing. Remember that every time you see your son smile, that's me smiling through him, she advises. She wants you to get over your guilt about missing her last moments. She claims that by taking care of yourself, you brought her peace, and that was all she ever desired. With tears streaming down her face, Emily nodded angrily. I was just in need of hearing that. That guilt has been with me for a very long time. Theresa squeezed Emily's hand as she reached across. You no longer need to carry it, honey. She is with you. Always. The audience cheered, not because it sounded like a show, but rather because they all thought they had just seen something that was impossible to explain. Emily whispered to her son, Grandma's with us, baby, and gave him a tighter hug than before. She will always be. A feeling of solace and recovery pervaded the air as Theresa proceeded to the next message. Emily saw the reading as more than just evidence. It was about finding closure, rediscovering love, and understanding that family ties are genuinely eternal. It served as a reminder to everyone else present that day that sometimes, just sometimes, the seemingly impossible becomes indisputable. But it was a sunny autumn afternoon on Long Island, the sort of day when the cool air seemed to reflect the changing of the seasons with its warmth and chill. Long Island Medium's production team was giddy with anticipation. Barbara Corcoran, the investor, real estate tycoon, and adored shark from Shark Tank, was an unexpected guest today. On television, she was renowned for her tough, self-assured personality, but today she was here for something completely different. Barbara had never believed in the existence of mediums. She was astute, analytical, and pragmatic. Real estate trends and numbers made sense to her. Speaking to the dead? Not at all. Nevertheless, she couldn't get rid of the ache that had been pulling at her heart for months. She carried a silent sadness, memories of her older brother, John, who had died years ago, beyond her successful smile and sharp wit. Growing up, John had been her staunchest ally, the one who assured her that she was destined for greatness when others questioned her. No amount of success could ever make up for the void his loss had left in her life. Barbara nearly turned down Theresa Caputo's initial invitation to meet. But she said yes out of curiosity and perhaps a glimmer of hope. As Barbara walked into Theresa's cozy, comfortable living room, the cameras began to roll. Theresa greeted Barbara with a hug, her warm Long Island energy and her trademark blonde hair teased high. Barbara, your presence here today makes me very happy. How are you? Theresa spoke with that contagious enthusiasm that instantly calmed her guests. Barbara laughed uneasily. Theresa, let me be honest. I have no idea what to anticipate. She made an ambiguous gesture around herself, saying, I'm not really a believer in this. Theresa gave a knowing smile. Don't worry, honey. You don't have to believe for spirit to work. Whether you're prepared or not, they will arrive. Following a brief exchange of small talk, Theresa's attitude changed. She seemed to be listening to something Barbara couldn't hear as her eyes became slightly distracted and her voice grew softer. Barbara, I sense a powerful masculine energy coming forward immediately. To you, it feels like a brother figure. Do you get that? Barbara's grin stopped. Her hands clasped tightly together as she leaned back. Yes, I do, I said. Theresa nodded in a gentle tone. He's telling me that he passed away suddenly and unexpectedly, and he's demonstrating to me how crucial he was in forming your identity. For example, when others didn't see your confidence, he gave it to you. Is that logical? Barbara's eyes started to sparkle. John was that person. My sibling. He was my victor. He told me I was smart when everyone else believed I was just a stupid child who would never succeed. I was special, he said. Closing her eyes, Theresa listened once more. He's showing me a memory, Barbara. He claims that when you were a young child, you were crying outside on the steps. He put his arm around you and advised you not to allow anyone to make you feel inferior. Remember that? The room's air became more dense. Barbara's mouth quivered. Yes, dear God, yes. Maybe I was 9 years old. Due to my dyslexia, the neighborhood kids used to make fun of me and call me dumb. John sat beside me when I got home crying and said, "Don't you listen to them, Barbara. One day, you're going to prove them all wrong." Her voice broke as the memory came flooding back. Theresa's gaze grew softer. He continues to say that. See, he asks. I was correct. Now take a look at her. Look at everything she's accomplished. He's very proud of you, Barbara. He is demonstrating to me that he has supported you throughout your entire journey, including when you went on Shark Tank and made your first significant real estate transaction. He's saying that if he hadn't sown that seed of belief, you wouldn't have had the guts to sit in that chair. With tears streaming down her cheeks, Barbara put her hand to her mouth. The unstoppable shark was clearly undone for once. I have experienced that. He has always felt like he was pushing me. He seems to have been whispering in my ear. It's overwhelming to hear you say that as well. With a thick Long Island accent and a gentle tone, Theresa leaned forward. He wants me to use a watch to acknowledge something as well? Or a piece of jewelry that you received from him? Barbara drew back a little as she gasped. His old timepiece. My drawer is where I keep it. I keep it close, but I never wear it. It's the only item of his that I kept. Theresa grinned warmly and nodded. You don't have to wear it, he says. It's enough that you are holding on to it. He is aware that you still occasionally speak with him alone late at night. He also wants you to know that you are heard. Each and every word at this point. Barbara lost it all. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed quietly, losing all composure. Except for the sound of her tears, the room fell silent. Theresa gently touched Barbara's hand as she reached across. Grief never goes away, honey. However, John is informing me that he is still present. He hasn't overlooked anything. And because you did, he wants you to stop questioning whether you made him proud. You always have. Barbara looked up, her eyes gleaming, her makeup a little smudged. That was what I needed to hear. More than I thought. I'm grateful, Theresa. Thank you. Theresa squeezed her hand. Great John instead of me. It was he who appeared. Barbara wiped away her tears and embraced Theresa tightly as the session came to an end. She felt lighter for the first time in a long time, as if a weight that she had been carrying in silence for years had been taken off her shoulders. I came here a skeptic, Barbara told the crew after the cameras had stopped rolling. I didn't expect anything substantial, but I did think this might be a pleasant experience. However, that was real. John was that person. And Barbara grinned despite her tears as she walked out of Theresa's house and into the cool autumn air. The shark, who was always so powerful and unflappable, had discovered a weakness. She had reconnected with the one voice she had missed the most in that vulnerability, her brother's voice, which had once again assured her that she was meant to shine. But Maria Thompson, a 54-year-old mother of 3 from North Carolina, loaded up her tiny SUV with snacks, bottled water, and an old blanket on a cool autumn morning. As she shut the trunk, her hands shook a little, not from the cold air, but from excitement. She had been anticipating this day for weeks. The Long Island medium, Theresa Caputo, had scheduled a meeting with her. A 12-hour drive from North Carolina to Long Island seemed exhausting, even absurd, to most people. For Maria, however, this was a journey of hope rather than merely a vacation. Maria had lost her oldest son, Matthew, in a terrible car accident 2 years prior. Ever since, she had been plagued by a persistent pain in her life. She had tried meditation, prayer, and counseling, but nothing had helped her find serenity. The nights were the worst. She would awaken at 3 in the morning and gaze at the deserted hallway where Matthew's room had once been filled with music and light. Something inside her stirred when she happened to stumble upon Theresa's show on TV. Maria felt a shaky hope as she saw strangers cry as Theresa brought them messages from their loved ones. Perhaps, just possibly, Matthew also had something to say to her. Maria set out before sunrise, whispering a little prayer into the steering wheel. Matthew, if this is real, please be there with me today, even though her friends called her crazy for driving so far. Maria finally made it to the tiny location where Theresa was to conduct a group reading after nearly 12 hours of driving, battling exhaustion, and listening to Matthew's favorite songs on the radio. Before the event had even begun, the parking lot was crowded with people, some anxious, some excited, and many clutching tissues. Maria's heart was racing as she entered. She located a seat in the center of the room. Conversations about lost spouses, friends, parents, and kids whirled around her. Everyone there appeared to have invisible scars, similar to hers. The crowd erupted in cheers when Theresa Caputo finally entered the room, her big smile, her big hair, and her distinctive Long Island accent. Maria, however, hardly heard it. Her hands were wet. She had a constricted chest. "Please, Matthew, let this be real," she whispered once more. With her hands moving as if she were drawing energy from the air, Theresa started to pace the room. "All right, spirit is already coming through," she stated with assurance in her voice. She stopped and cocked her head as if she was listening. "I'm listening to a young man who died very quickly and very abruptly. He's demonstrating impact to me, akin to an automobile collision." Maria's throat tightened with breath. Theresa looked around the space. "He's giving me the impression that a mother is supporting him. He says, 'Tell Mom I'm okay,' over and over. 'Tell Mom I'm all right.'" Before she could stop herself, Maria's hand shot upward. Her eyes filled with tears. "That's my son. That's my Matthew." There was silence in the room. Theresa's face softened as she approached. "He kissed your cheek just now, honey. When no one is around, do you occasionally feel warm on the inside?" Maria let out a gasp. "Indeed. I always believed that I was dreaming." Theresa gave a headshake. "That's him. He does that to let you know he's with you. He does not want you to believe that you are insane. That is true." Theresa went on, her tone firm but gentle. "He claims that you haven't changed his room. You failed to put his belongings away." Maria clutched her chest and nodded rapidly. "I was unable to. I simply couldn't. He wants you to know that no matter what you do with his possessions, you will never lose him. Mom, it's okay to let go of some of the things, but don't let go of me." "The things don't include him." Theresa tapped her own chest and said, "He's right here." Maria started crying at this point, her body trembling. Theresa took a small step forward. "Additionally, he claims that you still play his favorite song on the radio when you're driving. Do you get that?" Maria put her hand over her mouth. "Oh my God. Indeed. He adored Gravity by John Mayer. I listened to it all the way to this point." Theresa gave a gentle smile. "Well, you know what? He accompanied you on the entire drive. He shows me him singing along while he sits in the passenger seat and taps the dashboard. He wants you to know that you weren't traveling alone." Maria shed more tears, but they were lighter this time, as if something were being taken away from her heart. Additional validations were given throughout the reading, including Matthew's favorite sneakers, his goofy nickname for his younger sister, and the inside joke about his untidy hair. Maria's uncertainty was pierced by each detail, which replaced it with assurance and warmth. Theresa's voice finally grew softer. "Mom, I don't want you to just get by," he says. "I hope you survive. Don't blame yourself. Don't play that night again. You were powerless to do anything." Maria sobbed aloud, her shoulders trembling. For 2 long years, she had needed to hear those words more than anything else. "Are you aware of that?" Theresa inquired softly. "Yes," Maria said in a tearful whisper. "I get it." Maria hardly heard the applause that filled the room. The crushing weight on her chest had subsided for the first time since the death of her son. She sensed an unexplainable warmth, as if Matthew were actually embracing her from the other side. The lights at the venue were going out when Maria sat back in her SUV hours later. She didn't experience the weariness she had anticipated. Rather, she felt buoyant, almost light. "Thank you, baby," she muttered as she glanced at the passenger seat. "I appreciate you being here." She also claimed to have heard his laughter reverberating in the car for a moment. The road ahead of her was another 12-hour drive. However, it didn't seem long this time. It seemed like a path to recovery, tranquility, and at last, a new life. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.